The snow was falling hard against the glass doors of a quiet luxury building when a young mother stood frozen on the threshold, her arms wrapped tightly around her small child, her breath visible in the cold night air, and her pride already worn thin by a day that had taken everything from her except hope. The question that trembled in her heart was heavier than the child she carried, because tonight was not about comfort or dignity. It was about survival, about whether kindness still existed in a world that had turned its back on her too many times. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that change lives, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Ripple of Kindness, because stories like this remind us why compassion still matters. She had never imagined her life would narrow down to a single night of uncertainty. Once she had dreams that stretched far beyond tomorrow, dreams of a warm home, steady work, and a future where her child would never know the fear of being unwanted. But life had unraveled slowly and then all at once. The job she trusted disappeared after budget cuts. The landlord who once smiled stopped answering calls. Friends who promised support faded when help became inconvenient. By the time winter arrived, she was counting coins, timing meals, and learning how quickly dignity can erode when doors keep closing. That evening, the city felt colder than usual, not just from the weather, but from the indifference that surrounded her. She had walked for hours, her boots soaked, her arms aching, her child growing heavy and restless. Every step was a reminder of how fragile stability really is. She stopped in front of the building only because she could not walk anymore. The lights inside glowed warm and golden, a sharp contrast to the blue darkness outside. It felt like another world, one meant for people who never had to choose between pride and shelter. Inside, a man stood near the door, someone who looked like he belonged to those bright, protected spaces. His life was measured in meetings, decisions, and numbers that moved entire companies. As a CEO and a single father, he had learned to control chaos, but not the kind that stood before him now. He saw a woman whose coat was too thin for the season, and a child clinging to her as if the world might disappear if he let go. For a moment, their lives intersected in silence, two very different paths crossing at the most vulnerable point. The weight she carried was not just physical. It was the burden of asking for something she had never wanted to ask for. The fear of being judged, the memory of all the times she had been told no. She had promised herself she would never beg, yet here she was, standing at the edge of warmth, knowing that one answer could change everything. Her eyes held exhaustion, but also a quiet strength, shaped by love for the child who depended on her for everything. The man hesitated, not because he lacked compassion, but because he knew how complicated kindness could be. His own life had been marked by loss. He had raised his child alone after grief rearranged his world, learning how quickly circumstances could change despite wealth or success. He remembered nights when fear crept in, when he wondered if he was enough, when responsibility felt heavier than sleep. Looking at her, he recognized something familiar, the silent determination of a parent who refuses to give up. Time seemed to slow as the snow continued to fall. In that pause, something shifted. It was not charity that moved him, but recognition. He saw not a stranger, but a reflection of a path his life could have taken under different circumstances. He understood that sometimes people do not need saving, only a place to rest long enough to stand again. That night became a turning point, not because everything magically improved, but because compassion opened a door where fear had built walls. The warmth inside did more than chase away the cold. It reminded her that she was still seen, still human, still worthy of care. For the first time in weeks, her child slept peacefully, unaware of how close they had been to sleeping under the open sky. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to breathe. Days turned into conversations, and conversations into understanding. The man learned about her resilience, her willingness to work, her refusal to let hardship define her character. She learned that behind his polished exterior was a father who understood loneliness and responsibility more deeply than most. Their lives did not merge overnight, but something solid began to form, built on respect rather than rescue. Opportunities followed, not handed out of pity, but offered because potential was recognized. She found stability through honest work, regained confidence through independence, and rebuilt a sense of self that hardship had tried to erase. The child found laughter again, small joys that had been missing for too long, and the man found something unexpected too, a reminder that success means little if it cannot be shared in moments that truly matter. As winter slowly loosened its grip, the world seemed different, softer somehow, not because problems vanished, but because kindness had proven itself real. One night of compassion had created ripples neither of them could have predicted, changing the direction of lives that once felt stuck in place. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that one small act can change everything, please like, share, and engage with this video so more people can feel this message of hope and humanity. Before the ending, we have a special request for you. Comment below with one word that describes what kindness means to you, because your words might inspire someone who needs them today. In the end, it was never about wealth or power or status. It was about a moment when someone chose empathy over indifference, and how that choice quietly transformed fear into hope. The night that began with a desperate question ended with a future rewritten, proving that sometimes all it takes to change a life is the courage to open a door and the heart to say yes.